Hello, I'm going to read some more from the Talmud Emmanuel, starting at chapter 9. Healing of the Gouty person's grief. 1. Then he stepped into the boat, returned to the other side again, and came into a town. 2. And behold, they brought to him a Gouty person, lying on a bed and in deep grief on account of his disease. So he could not walk in his pain. When Emmanuel saw his trust, he spoke to the paralytic. Quote, "Be comforted, because your trust in the power of your spirit, consciousness, or creation, life energy, and your confidence in my teaching, which is truly the teaching of the nature and of the creation, will help you if you follow my words in goodwill." 3. Emmanuel spoke thus for a long time with the Gouty person and taught him much about the power of the spirit, or the creation, life energy, and the will, or the consciousness. And the sick person understood what was taught to him, and thus he accepted it as good knowledge. So he soon lost his grief, rose from the bed, took up his bed, and walked from there. 4. And behold, some of the scribes who heard of this began stirring up talk among the people. Quote, "This man slanders God in our holy teachings." 5. But since Emmanuel understood their thoughts, he spoke. "Why do you think such evil thoughts against that which is your better teaching? If only you would accept what is truly the truth, as has been taught since ancient time by the teaching of the prophets." 6. But truly, if the knowledge and the wisdom and the love are not given, then it is not easy to say, "Your trust is the teaching, and in your will have helped you," or to say, "Stand up and walk," if someone has succumbed in anxiety to grief and lameness. Truly, knowledge and wisdom and love must be given, so that the anxiety and the grief or the lameness may be resolved. 7. So that you may know that I am a human being like you, and yet know how to use the power, knowledge, wisdom, and love of my spirit consciousness. I commanded the Gouty person in his grief, follow my words in the power of thought and understanding. So also follow your will and get up, pick up your bed, and walk away. 8. And so he stood up, took up his bed, and walked away. Explanation. The grief-stricken paralytic's trust in Emmanuel, as well as his certainty that he would be healed by Emmanuel's power, activated his life powers. Consequently, he was healed of his grief from that hour on. Thus, in this case, as well as in various other cases, it was the suggestive words and consciousness powers of Emmanuel by which the paralytic, befallen by grief, was healed. His trust, his certainty, and hope that he would be healed of his suffering allowed him to think about his rationality. Thus, it was his own consciousness powers and self-healing powers and his rationality which he mobilized and thereby healed himself by listening to Emmanuel's words and explanations and following everything that was told to him. As in other cases where Emmanuel was the trigger of the healings, this case, too, stirred up the human being's belief far and wide that he possessed divine powers. This was due to the lack of understanding of the human beings at that time, and this lack of understanding is still the case even in the present time of the 21st century, in which case still innumerable ones in esoteric, religious, and sectarian delusional faiths believe in divine powers that human beings are supposed to have when they, excuse me, I'll go back here. This was due to the lack of understanding of the human beings at that time, and this lack of understanding is still the case even in the present time of the 21st century, in which case still innumerable ones in esoteric, religious, and sectarian delusional faiths believe in divine powers that human beings are supposed to have when they, through their suggestive consciousness powers and suggestive words, statements, and explanations, as well as with the laying on of hands and other actions, bring those who are sick and those who are suffering thereto, that these ones mobilize their own suggestive consciousness powers and their rationality, create self-healing powers in themselves, and thus initiate their own self-healing. 9. When the people saw and heard this, they became fearful, but then praised, extolled the new, wondrous teaching of Jmmanuel, which gave such might to the human beings. 10. And as Jmmanuel was leaving, he saw a man who was sitting at the tax office, who was named Matthias or Matthew, and asked whether he may learn the teaching of the prophets. And so Jmmanuel spoke to him, "Follow me as a disciple, and grasp unto learn what I teach." And so he followed him in the teaching, and often accompanied him around the land. 11. And it came to pass as he was eating in a house, 5 tax collectors and unknowing ones and truth seekers came and ate at the table with Jmmanuel and his disciples and disciplesses. 12. When the Pharisees heard this, 2 of them went and spoke to his 3 disciples and the 2 disciplesses. "Why is your master eating with the tax collectors and the unknowing?" 13. When Jmmanuel heard this, he spoke, "The healthy do not need a physician, but the sick do. And the knowing do not need the teaching, but the unknowing do. And those who were not led into confusion do not need the instruction, but those who were led into confusion do." 14. Go therefore, and recognize the falseness of your false and confused teachings. Resolve the falsehood and confusion, and grasp onto, learn the truth, so you do not lead into confusion those human beings who thirst for truth. Fasting. 15. Then 3 disciples and 5 disciplesses of Johannes came to him, saying, quote, "Master, why do we and the Pharisees fast, while you and your disciples and disciplesses do not fast?" 16. Jmmanuel said to them, "How can the unknowing fast and suffer while they are being taught knowledge? And how can the teacher fast when he is teaching knowledge to the unknowing?" 18. Know that the unknowing only grasp, learn with hindrance, difficulty, and the teacher has to teach with difficulty. If they starve and hunger and their thoughts are only in suffering. 19. Truly I say to you, your teachings are false if you fast according to the laws of a cult, religion, or sect. Fasting does not serve a false teaching or or a belief, but rather the health of the body and the growth of the spirit consciousness. But if it is burdened by hunger, then it does not grasp, it does not learn. 20. No one mends an old garment with a new patch of cloth, because the patch will tear again from the garment, and the rip will become worse. And so it is with the grasping learning of the spirit consciousness, which only grasps, learns, if it does not suffer from hunger. 21. Neither is new wine poured into old wineskins, for they will tear and the wine will spill, and the wineskins will break, burst, be destroyed as a result of the fermentation of the new wine. Instead, new wine is put into new wineskins, so both are preserved. Well, that's where I'm going to stop reading. I hope you enjoy this little reading from the Talmud of Jmmanuel, written by the scribe Judas Iscariot for Emmanuel over 2,000 years ago. And it's the book Talmud of Jmmanuel by Judas Iscariot. It's a great book. If you'd like to get it, go to figu.org, which is the parent center, the Semyasi Silver Star Center, or you can go to theyfly.com on the internet, or Figu Canada, they sell the book too, and others. So I hope you enjoy this and have a good Friday night, and Salome.